back. It's Friday. It's Friday at 2 o'clock, and we have a special show with Brad Wong, MD, super surgeon, and one of the principals of Aloha Medical Mission. Welcome again, and thanks for appearing on Think Tech.
Thanks for having me here, Jane.
Yeah, it's great. So anyway, let's talk about your trip. You just came back 2 weeks ago from Nepal. And Nepal, I would say, at least in recent times, has been the most frequent place Aloha Medical Mission has visited for its surgical missions. Yeah.
Well, actually not. We've got 3 other team leaders going to the Philippines and Burma. And this was our 5th mission to Nepal now in the past 6 years. So
okay.
It's not the most common, but we've gone to the Philippines maybe 3 times a year now.
What's the difference between Nepal and the Philippines and Burma?
Well, this is a rough mission physically, mentally, professionally. It's Nepal is one of the poorest countries in the world, ranked by the United Nations as the 16th poorest. It's got 27 million people. It's hard to get to. It takes 36 hours to get to the capital. And then we've got another hour flight and another 4 hours of bus ride up windy roads and precipices.
I remember.
And in this time, we had a lot of ambiguities even going because there was the earthquake in April. 9,000 people were killed.
A few months ago.
We weren't sure whether we could even do the mission because were the roads passable? Were the people safe enough? Were they able to take us?
Sure.
And they were. The older buildings in Kathmandu were the ones damaged. The newer buildings, our hotel was okay. The roads to our territory were slightly damaged, but repairable. And then, a month before we left, there's a strike by the Southern Nepali over the new constitution, which is long overdue for 9 years. They feel they weren't represented. And so they struck. Because they're associated with India, India now is in this battle with Nepal. There's no fuel, no food, no cooking oil, no cooking fuel.
They're withholding the supplies.
That's right. There are miles and miles of trucks of food, cement, rebar, diesel fuel, motorbike
survival
fuel.
And rebuild things from the earthquake.
Here we are trying to build the infrastructure from the earthquake, and this blockade is occurring just at the worst possible time.
Yeah.
And so we didn't know whether we could do this because 50 people were killed the month before that we were there in demonstrations. Were we safe and so on? And it turns out, and you'll see a picture of this, that our buses actually were stoned before they got, as we were driving to the airport to pick us up.
Welcome to do your humanitarian work,
The
Doctor.
windows were broken. We delayed it for an hour. The Army had to escort us out of town for an hour to be sure that we weren't going to be stoned. But once we got to our village, we were fine.
Tankuta.
Tankuta, yeah. But the southern area was the problem. And the price of the mission went up because of the fuel costs were 5 times higher. We don't know whether we were going to have food in the village because of the embargo, but we did. And the people themselves are suffering tremendously because of this, and they just showed tremendous fortitude in not only putting up with the earthquake and the lack of food and lack of fuel. Taxi drivers and motorcyclists have to wait 2 days to get fuel. They have lines for a quarter mile on the street in front of every gas station, waiting for fuel when the ration is going to start. They don't know when it will start. They're just waiting on the street.
How inefficient.
It's a...
You had some photographs, actually some movie clips, first time we did a show on the subject, of a crowd welcoming you, and they were happy. It was a joyous parade to welcome
6 years
you.
ago.
Yeah. Did
And
you have that
every
this
year
time?
they do that for us.
Including this time.
And this year they did too. Yeah. So I didn't bring a photo because I figured that's old hat now.
Everybody remembers, you know.
So we were surprised that they welcomed us so readily, even though they didn't know us. They didn't know what we were going to do, but it was part of the culture. And so the lei was not a Hawaiian invention. Every one of us got marigold leis. So that tradition is not unique to Hawaii.
So what did you find in the, in the population you dealt with? Had they more health issues, less health issues, the same? Or are they happier, sadder, the
Well,
same?
I think one issue is that the health issues remain the same. The government is unable to provide the doctors, the nurses. They don't have the resources to increase the facilities they have, so there's a shortage of facilities. They don't have the money to staff the current facilities or improve the ones they have. And so not only does it take 3 to 4 days for a sick person to get to a hospital, but when they get there, they can't pay for it. And when they get there, there may not be the staff to take care of them. It's a compounded problem. So that hasn't changed. And the people, on the other hand, are amazingly resilient and welcoming. They carry on with their lives in spite of this health burden and go on. I think that's the remarkable thing about Nepal, that they don't riot. They're really accepting of their incompetent parliament and their government. They accept the corruption and they go on. They don't like it, they protest. This protest for 2 months now. It continues as we speak, this blockade. Fuel shortages continue. But they're not a violent country, which is a testimonial to them, really. Mm-hmm. It's not like what you're seeing in South America and certainly the Middle East, where there's a lot of anger that is seen on the streets. It doesn't happen in Nepal.
While you were there, I went to New York. I went to New York to see the handiwork of your colleague, Mark Mugiishi.
Yes.
And that
Broadway
means,
play.
Yeah, Allegiance, the Broadway
Yes.
play. Very touching, and next time you should take a look at it. People, including people from Hawaii, but also a lot of other people, gave it a standing ovation that wouldn't stop.
Good.
It was really remarkable. One of the songs and the concepts in the plot line and all that, one of the essential elements, I would say, of the play was something called gammon. It's a Japanese concept of toughing it through. Even if you're in a Manzanar, in this case, Heart Mountain type of detention camp, you tough it out. And they
without complaining.
Without complaining.
Yeah.
It's an essential element of the play. And it sounds like the same thing in Nepal.
Definitely.
Yeah. So this trip, why do you keep on going back? why do you keep on going back to
That's a
Damputa
good question.
and to Nepal?
Every time I go, I get sick. I've been recovering from this stuffy head for a month now, and 80% of my crew got sick last year. This year was only 70%. They blame me that I started it. Last year it was someone else. But there's GI, respiratory, head colds. Everyone suffers, and still we go back.
Is this because the people in Nepal have the microbes? Do they suffer, or are they just sort of carrying it for your benefit?
Well, we're going into a country where we're newcomers, and we're traveling on an airplane. It's a closed space. It's very easy to get sick from that. We're just encountering all kinds of people that are coughing. There's the bugs are endemic in Nepal. We're out of our element. We're not sleeping well. So we're primed to get sick.
Yeah.
And where we are, I would say 50% of the patients we're examining as we're sitting next to them are coughing into our faces without covering their mouth. And we're doing this every day, seeing 100 patients every day, just being deluged with these germs. And even with a mask on, there's no way to protect ourselves. And we get sick.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
That's really
but
too bad.
In spite of that, the need, the need persists. And this year, we did two things differently. We increased the number of gynecologists. We doubled the number of gynecologists to come, and that was to address this issue that we've talked about before. Nepal is one of the highest rates of uterine prolapse in the world. We're going to see a picture of this later. And it's estimated that out of a population of 27 million, 600,000 women, more than half the population of Hawaii, suffer from this problem where they have many babies, they're back at work in 4 or 5 days, they're doing heavy lifting, and the pelvis isn't healed enough.
They're carrying all this on their every day.
Tremendous amount of weight, and the uterus falls out. It's a debilitating condition. And we needed to address this, so we brought 3 gynecologists we added 1 bed instead of 2 beds to do this. So we pretty much doubled our caseload from, excuse me, 19 prolapses to 30 prolapses.
What's this operation like? You have to remove the uterus?
We remove the uterus because it's sticking out. And so it's a specialist job. It's not an ordinary gynecologist job. You have to be specially trained to watch for the bladder and the urethra where the urine comes out. If you don't do this right, the women after the surgery will be leaking urine.
Incontinent, yeah.
So these are highly qualified surgeons who know how to repair this and tuck it up so that the incidence of leakage is much less. The conventional gynecologist not always is trained to do this. So it's not a simple procedure to do. So all 3 of the gynecologists that we brought to work on 2 tables were specially trained to do
This
this.
is a lengthy operation.
Not necessarily. It depends on the patient and the experience of the operator, but it can take between an hour to 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
And it's full anesthesia.
Spinal anesthesia.
Oh, fine. Oh,
Yeah, so
okay.
they're numb from the waist down.
Yeah. If we're going to see a picture of a prolapse, and this is for educational purposes. And if you can't handle a graphic image of something that isn't particularly pleasant to look at, then don't look at it. But I guess the point is, having looked at it, I can't imagine a woman functioning at all.
Absolutely.
With a prolapsed.
It's not only painful, it bleeds, it can get infected. It's painful for a number of reasons. One, because of the pulling of the evisceration, the moving of an organ from the inside to the outside. You've got this organ now between your legs as you're trying to work.
Yeah.
I
And
can't
it's pulling all the time.
Yeah, I can't imagine how these women live with it. Plus, they're having to take care of a family, tend the farm, cook, get the water every day to cook. Because the women do most of the heavy work, not the men.
Yeah. Painful.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, and you also brought a lot of dentists along this time?
Yeah, normally we would bring 1 dentist. He'd work with a couple Nepali dentists, and probably they'd see 150 patients and take out a couple hundred teeth. This time we brought 5 dentists. So instead of 1 or 2 chairs, we had 4 chairs going. And instead of 200 patients, we saw 500 patients. And these dentists pulled out close to 900 teeth and did 100 fillings. They really cranked it out. There's a huge need to take care of bad teeth in Nepal.
As I recall, for toothpaste, they use a very abrasive material.
Yeah, and that actually is damaging
and damages their teeth.
teeth. They'll even use salt, baking soda, salt,
Yeah.
or just the grit, the sand. They'll
Yeah.
use it to scrub
And
the,
it takes the
takes
outside
the enamel
tooth
off of
right
the tooth, yeah. So that's one of the educational things we have to tell them not to do.
Yeah. And then you had a death on this trip.
We did. And we've always anticipated, we've been doing missions now for 33 years. For many years, we haven't had problems like this. But over the past 3 or 4 years, as we've been doing more missions and as the patients have become more complicated, we've had 2 deaths now.
Surgical deaths.
Surgical deaths.
In or as a result of the surgery.
Right. As a number of mission leaders have been doing this not only here, but in the Philippines. And we knew that it was inevitable. It's going to happen. We've had complications. Most of them were minor. Some were complicated, but we fixed them. But this is not simple operations that we're doing. This is complex surgery. We knew it was going to happen. And in this case, we weren't clear exactly what the cause was, but part of it was this lady was operated on early in the week. She could have come back, but waited. Part of it was reluctance of the patient to come back. The other was that it took 1 or 2 days for the patient to get to the hospital, and that there was a delay. And she actually missed seeing us by about 12 hours. If she had come back to our hospital 12 hours earlier, we might have seen her and treated her. Instead, we left. She came back later, 10 hours later, to our hospital. We weren't there. Went home, got sent to another hospital. There wasn't room there. Went to another hospital 3 days later. It was too late and she died. So it was a perfect storm of what I think was a complication that could have been treated had we seen her, but because of the difficulties in the culture of not wanting to be seen right away, holding in the pain, and the difficulty in getting transport, the fact that she couldn't get to a hospital because it was filled, she had to go to another hospital, another delay. It was one of these things. But
It's the intersection of modern medical technology and ancient culture.
yeah.
And it has its difficulties.
And it takes its toll on the mission people because for years and years we do this, and it's always a good feeling. We haven't had a death. And on the other hand, the reality is that I've always felt that it was inevitable it was going to happen because of the nature of the work. This is not making seashell lays. You know, this is operating on people, doing major surgery in settings that are not ideal. We've talked about this a lot. We've kind of downplayed it and kind of machoed it up, you know, no aircon, no electricity, bad lighting.
All increase the risk.
But it increases the risk. And on the other hand, as we go through the review of this case, all of us who do missions, and Aloha Medical Mission isn't the only group, obviously. There are hundreds of groups around the world doing this. And we're all subject to the same risk, that we do this to help people. And on the other hand, there's always this risk overlying us that something might happen. Because it happens here in the best of circumstances.
Sure.
On the other hand, the number of people that we've helped, as we rationalize this and come to understand it, the number of people that we've helped are so many that we can't let this dissuade us.
Can't let this get in the way.
No.
Let's take a short break. That's Brad Wong, MD, super surgeon with Aloha Medical Mission. Here we are in Think Tech Global. We're talking about expanding our visits to Nepal with a question mark. We'll be right back.
Aloha! Hello, my name is Patrick Bratton. I'm host at Global Connections here at ThinkTech Hawaii. We broadcast live every Thursday at 1 p.m. We bring Hawaii to the world and the world to Hawaii, talking about international events and various things of interest to the audience. Please join me. I look forward to talking with you and having you get to meet some of my guests. Aloha.
Aloha, my name is Kaui Lucas. I am the host of Hawaii is My Mainland, here every Friday on Think Tech Hawaii at 3 p.m. I invite people who are doing interesting and inspiring things in our community to help us keep it local and keep it real. Tune in any Friday, 3 p.m. and also available on our YouTube channel and my blog, kauilucas.com. Hawaii is my mainland. Aloha.
It's hard to say what the
Okay, we're back, we're live, and now we're going to get graphic with you. We have some pictures. We're going to go through the slideshow. So why don't we see some of those photos, and Brad can do voiceover.
Well, this is not Nepal. This is a guy's house in Wilhelmina Rise, Mark Chai. He's an artist, and he made these lights and sold them. The donation of those lights went to fund our mission. And I bring this up because this mission cost us $22,000.
Which is really much less than you would imagine.
No, this is a lot.
Oh, okay.
Our mission's-
all volunteers.
Well, this is the actual volunteers. We pay our own way.
Yeah.
That cost is $90,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this $22,000 cost is buying our medications, is paying for the transport, paying for the fuel to run the generator, buying the IVs, buying the so this cost has gone up every year, and this is not. I bring this up because this is one of the most expensive missions we've had.
Simply because of inflation.
That and, well, the fuel crisis. Our transportation costs were $2,500 in country.
Yeah.
The fuel to drive us to the town cost more. We got it on the black market to take us there.
Yeah.
And it's people like Mark who donated this money to allow us to do this. Here's the group landing in Kathmandu, like it's on a sunny day. Everybody's going into this with high spirits. And
How many people in the group?
this is a big group, 46 people.
Oh, wow.
And that doesn't count the 20 or 30 Nepali volunteers who are helping us, also traveling from their town, coming to this town to take time off from their work. So you can see the glass on the bottom of the bus. This is the 8 windows that were broken by the throwers who were blockading the roads. They didn't want any buses, motorcycles, cars traveling because of this protest. So this bus, which didn't have any sign saying it was for charity, was stoned. Having said that, they were even stoning ambulances the week before because they were on the road. So,
There's a lack of consideration for
so we had an army
community.
escort out of town for the first hour during the risky part.
He didn't have to do anything, though.
No.
There's the
It's
hospital.
the hospital. It's a 25-bed hospital, takes care of an area of 25,000 people. Our operating room is right on that second floor, that window that you're seeing in the front. The downstairs is the emergency room on the left. We operate on the outpatient, the minor surgery, right in that little corner there on the first floor. They don't operate there normally, so we convert this operating room, which is normally empty, into our main OR, and you'll see a picture of that later on.
Did you get good support and cooperation from them?
We're getting, every year is getting better.
Okay.
The town is really wonderful now. We struggled the first year, as you recall.
Yeah.
The administrators didn't know we were coming, they didn't support us, we had to argue with them, we almost threatened to leave. Now, we're family and it's a piece of cake.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a dental.
So here's a dentist. Now
situation.
this is a guy in a corner. You can see these are not white, clean walls. And that instrument you see on the right side is our portable dental unit, which we bring. We use that for the dentists who are filling teeth because you need a lot more instrumentation to suck and dry and drill the teeth. They're not working in ideal conditions. He is lucky he has a dental chair.
Yeah, and a light.
And a light, yes. But we have all the dentists bring their own. So here in an area, this is a private dentist who donated his office, a space that would normally hold 2 chairs, we've thrown 3 chairs. And you can see that one of our dentists here has his own headlight. The other ones also have their own headlight. So we don't need to depend on a dental light.
Overhead, yeah.
Yeah. We can do this in a hallway, which we do sometimes. And there's another dentist in a private room on a 4th chair. So this is how we cranked out.
They're not going to give a full range of dental services, though.
Joe, what else do you need? Jeff,
Oh.
I mean, Jay, you got a bad tooth?
Yeah.
It's infected, it's
Yeah,
got to come out.
take it out,
You
that's
take it
it.
out, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not, you're right, we're not building crowns. We're not implanting teeth in the, yeah.
That would be a lot
That's a
slower.
little bit too advanced. So here's, you can see the transformers and the crude apparatus that we throw on this tidy office. Our dental unit is there to the left. It's a portable unit donated by one of our dentists, purchased, and we carry it on all our missions. And it's amazing, this
Amazing what
chaos
you
of
can do.
wires,
Yeah,
but it works.
but it works.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
And the
Yeah.
scene in the background is taken from our hotel roof, and the orange building, that L-shaped building,
Yeah.
is the hospital.
And the hospital is in a kind of compound, right? There's a gateway
Yeah.
from the main street.
With guards there.
Guards.
Oh, absolutely.
Guarding the hospital.
In fact, the first 2 years we were there, we had a full supply of Army. We had 40 Army guys with automatic weapons in the road, at the gate, in the hospital, in the corridors, at all times we were there.
Protecting you from whom?
I don't know. The rebels. This is a time when the Maoist rebels had just, turned peaceful in 2008. This was 2 years before we came. And there was no risk that we could perceive of, but we had, now they're still armed guards, but much fewer.
Yeah.
It's much more peaceful of a country.
So let's take a visit to the operating rooms and see what we got.
So this is the main room. It's one room meant to house one OR table, but here you can see that we put 3 operating room tables, one on the left, in the middle, and the right. The 2 on the left are the 2 gynecology tables, and on the right, the main general surgery, where we're doing a lot of gallbladders.
Gets crowded.
Yeah, we did about 38 gallbladders. We did 45 gynecology cases. 30 of them were for prolapse. The rest were for big uteruses and big tumors of the ovary. Now
Here's the prolapse.
Here's what a
and
prolapse
if,
looks
if
like.
there's anybody out there where this is too much for them, then turn it off.
This is an advanced prolapse.
Yeah.
And this is actually a very clean one right at the moment because she's been
Prepared.
in the hospital, she's been prepped.
Yeah.
And you can imagine that because of the mechanics, this woman is constantly leaking urine out of her bladder. There's no way to keep herself dry.
Doesn't make it more healthy.
No,
So, and you would remove that whole structure that we saw.
that's right. And it's done, most people think that a uterus, a large uterus or a large ovarian tumor is taken out through an abdominal incision, which in the old days, that's true. But with this type of thing, you can see that the uterus is already out in your face. And so it's removed by another technique of cutting around it. It's already out of the body. And so it's taken out in that position.
Yeah.
Things are pushed back in, and that's the area of skill that is required to be sure that the tube that takes the urine out of the bladder is not injured, the rectum is not injured, and after, things are snug so that it doesn't fall back out again.
So you had, 46 people doing this. How many surgeons, how many nurses, how many assistants?
Yeah, well, we had 4 general surgeons, 3 gynecologists, 1 plastic surgeon. We had 6 operating room nurses, 8 or 9 ICU nurses.
Here's some of them.
Yeah, so the lady in blue from on your left, second in there, is one of the gynecologists. And the lady in the white coat on your right is the second gynecologist, 2 of 3. And the patient there is the lady with all that beautiful scarf over her head.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 Nepali ladies are volunteers, and she's ready to go home.
What about local volunteers? I mean, from Hawaii, I know that you've had some really wonderful people
Yeah, so
accompany you on these trips.
we always take non-medical volunteers. We need them to do all the dirty work, that we're unwilling to do.
Oh, is that what it is?
So
you out of trouble.
they've got to clean the instruments, scrub the floors, move the patients. And where I worked in the outpatient department, I bring totally non-medical people. One of my classmates from high school brought his wife, and they were my helpers in outpatient surgery. So within 6 hours, they were briefed on how to prep the operating site, pull the anesthetic out, put my instruments together, clean the wound, help me stop the bleeding, bandage it after I'm finished.
That's great.
And eventually they were assisting me during the case and sewing, putting in a few sutures that were simple.
That's great.
And these are people that were excited and nervous
Sure.
and uncertain as to what their role would be, but it's good for them. We had about 10 of these.
Why do they come? I mean, you've asked me to come along on these trips
Yes, Jay,
multiple
why not?
multiple times,
Right.
and do that, I guess.
Yeah.
But why do people come?
If I were to distill it, I would say that there are 2 types of people that came with us, the old and the young. The young are the guys in school, college, pre-med, medical students, training to be a surgeon, and they're eager to find their way. Is this what I want to do? I want to help. I'm going to be a doctor or a nurse, and is this the thing I want to do? On the other hand, there are these older guys that come. My friend as an attorney and other older folks realize that in their job, they may have done a good deed in the job that they did. An attorney can help people with their legal aspects, and a public health person and a teacher. But they've all told me as they get older, they didn't touch somebody physically and have this personal involvement with someone's health. They wanted to give back in this way. They may have given back by helping the community, by donating money or services, but they felt this need as they got older to get their hands dirty, I guess is the way of doing it, to get involved on the very basic level that medical people do, of helping people, I think, on the most basic level of their existence, which is
Yeah.
what makes medicine so fascinating and
Yeah.
rewarding.
Yeah, so they come, they pay their own expenses.
Yeah.
They
And I ask
come-
them to give money too, if they can do it,
Yeah,
you know?
well, they're probably all stoked about it.
Yeah,
by
they're
the
all
time-
rich guys anyway, right? They're not all rich. So, and we need their contacts in the community to help support it, our mission as well, but they do it willingly and they're all excited about
And
it.
it changes their lives.
It does too,
Yeah.
yes.
How long is the trip?
It's a long one. This mission, because we take so long to travel, it takes 1.5 days to get there to the capital and another day to get there. So we spend 10 days operating, which means that we're 20 days away when you tack on the coming and going and the preparation. So it's 20 days away that a teacher or an attorney
It's a
or
long trip.
or a physician or a nurse has to take away from their work.
Yeah,
You know, it is a commitment to do,
yeah.
but there are people eager to do it.
We're going to take a short break, Brad. That's Brad Wong, MD, super surgeon with Aloha Medical Mission for many years, and helping people hands-on here on Think Tech Global, and we're talking about expanding visits to Nepal, question mark. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name's Hillary Weinberg. I'm the host of The Whole Gamut on Think Tech Hawaii. See us live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. or on our YouTube channel to hear us talk about world affairs from Hawaii and beyond. See you then.
Hi, I'm Stan the Energy Man, Stan Osterman, and I'm here to tell you about my show on Friday, every Friday, on my lunch hour, 12 o'clock till 1 o'clock here on Think Tech Hawaii. We talk about everything energy and anything you ever wanted to know about energy. So we're full of energy, and we'll see you here every Friday at noon to 1. Aloha.
Okay, we're with Brad Wong, MD, super surgeon, who has spent a lot of time and effort on Aloha Medical Mission. There's many factors many things he has to do and many factors involved in the work. And I'd like to sort of get a landscape on this. You mentioned earlier that there are a lot of organizations around the world. Médecins Sans Frontières, the French one. How can we say that the Aloha Medical Mission is distinguished from the rest?
Well, we're one of many. Doctors Without Borders is an exceptional organization. When I retired, I even looked into it and I was going to apply for them, but they demand too much rigor from their doctors. Their mission is to intentionally put their medical staff into regions of political instability, which have resulted in the disruption of key medical facilities. And they go in there to restore that. And that mission, just by its nature, is risky to the participants and involves a lot of physical challenges of travel and living conditions, which I wasn't willing to do at 60 years of age.
Hard to do medicine.
It's very difficult. And some of my friends who have come on our missions have gone with Doctors Without Borders, and they enjoy it. It's a challenge for them. I admire what they do. One gal was actually in Syria a year and a half ago, just before Assad used nerve gas in the capital, in one of the towns. And she was evacuated from the hospital either a day or so before the gas was used or around the time it was used, and at the urging of her family left. So she was at risk, and kudos to those guys and gals that can do that. But for me, I wasn't willing to do that. Aloha Medical Mission is a type of organization that takes a group of medical people that does elective surgeries. There are other groups. One of the guys that came on our mission was an old-time general surgeon who worked for 3 or 4 months at a time in Kenya, helped fund the development of a hospital there, spent a lot of time working with an orphanage.
Local doctor.
He's from New Mexico. And that's another kind of medical work that takes a lot out of you. I did this for 4 months after I retired. I worked in Nepal for 4 months, living in a hospital, living there and doing the daily work.
Then some of that is life and death. Some of that is not elective at all.
This is taking care of the everyday occurrences in a country.
Trauma victims, that kind of thing.
Trauma, emergencies, the elective cases as well, everything that you would see on a day-to-day basis. We as a Aloha Medical Mission, we pre-screen, we have our local people pre-screen the cases. We try not to do the life-threatening cases, the critical ones that would die. We do the ones that are elective, that are pretty stable, whose outcome is going to be good, more or less, that are safe.
You improve lives.
Yeah, but we do it in a setting that is pretty stable and in a safety bubble, not in a risky area, like Doctors Without Borders. And it doesn't have the longer commitment that is demanded of someone who's going to live in a country for 3 to 6 months. Because what professional who's 40 years old with a family of 3 kids,
Going to do that.
who's going to send their kids to college and wants to advance his family or her family, would want to spend 6 to 8 months in another country? You know,
With much greater risk.
yeah, you've got pretty much got to be a Christian missionary.
Yeah, and if you, and this helps you get volunteers by taking this road.
That's right.
By setting it up this way, you can get volunteers where otherwise you might not be able
Yeah,
to
the
get
group of people that want to dedicate 3 months, 6 months, or a year, or 5 years of their lives to working in a third world country to do this is very small.
Yeah,
Fortunately, there are people like that
Yeah.
who want to do that. So we fill a certain niche, and various organizations in the U.S. and other countries they have their association with various countries. They go to clinics in Africa or Asia and do their thing. And fortunately, there is this humanitarian effort in the world.
yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you trips off something that we talked about before, namely that there is a medical school in Kathmandu. There is a medical school.
Well, there are many schools.
Many medical schools. Really?
Well,
Are
not
they
just
little
in-
tiny medical schools? or
No,
what?
they're quite large medical schools, and they're not just in Kathmandu, but they're in other cities throughout Nepal. Many of these are for-profit schools, often run by other countries, mostly India. So they'll tap into the well-to-do people in Nepal, families who can afford the medical school,
Have a doctor, make their son into a doctor. Yeah.
and make their son or daughter into a doctor. And so, on the other hand, the chute to the top to be a doctor in Nepal is very narrow. There are not that many positions. It takes a lot of money in your family to allow this to happen. And once you become a doctor, there are very few opportunities in Nepal to be paid a living wage and to fulfill your training, so that, and this is a problem in Africa where doctors may be well trained, but if they cannot be placed in a suitable environment where they or their family is not safe, or they cannot earn a living, or they cannot utilize their skills, they're going to move away.
Yeah.
And that's happened in Nepal, that many of the Nepali doctors, first of all, they can't get specialty training in residencies for medicine or surgery in Nepal because there are not enough places. There are not enough training spots. So they have to pay their way to go to the Philippines or to India or to China or to the Ukraine to get their surgical or their medical training, to get their residency training. And many of these people do not return to Nepal. So this is one of the problems why missions are needed in Nepal, because they don't have the personnel to take care of their own people.
So and that raises another follow-up question I wanted to ask you, and that is, we have a world with extraordinary disparity in the availability of healthcare. between the developing countries, which are not, or developed countries, which are not all at the same parity anyway, and then the developing countries, which are, some of them have really zero health care. The more violent, the poorer, the less health care. How, in the end, I mean, you've seen this, you must be thinking about it when you make these trips. How, in the end, are we going to deal with the disparity? Right now, it all seems so ad hoc. It's, you pick up and you go, you create Aloha Medical Mission. Everybody has a mission of one kind or another. How are we going to make a system that will alleviate the disparity?
It's really difficult. And to me, it's not, I don't have the skills to, which I've seen in others who have the financial support and the organizational skills to move into a country, to gather the political and social support in a town, to fund a hospital, to staff it, and to bring in other people to generate the entire infrastructure that's needed to run a health organization. That's beyond my abilities. So I view Aloha Medical Mission and the people that help us as focusing on a really narrow area. We are a grain of sand on the beach, and I don't have a clue as to how the greater issue of medical education in Nepal or the Philippines or other countries in Burma, it can be changed to bring more care to their people. It's an issue of political stability and instability, of economics, that
Maybe
is
beyond
much too
national.
complex.
You don't think the local government's not going to handle it. They can't do very much. They can welcome you, but that's, the national government may, not be in shape to put anything together. And so you look to larger structures than that. You look to
Well,
United Nations.
And then again, it's what you see the United Nations doing in Africa and the Middle East seems like just a Sisyphean task of pushing sand up and watching the sand roll down, right? It doesn't seem like it's helping. And I can see that the philanthropy of individuals may become much more important to subsidize the improvements in healthcare.
We only have a minute left, and I know you've told me how people are so profoundly affected by participating in these trips. And when you talk to them, you are profoundly affected. I am, by hearing their stories. But we have a couple of other slides, and I want to visit them, and you can tell what we have here.
Yeah, this shot I took maybe 3 weeks ago. A mom and her kid. I think this kid just had a simple problem, a hernia fixed. And we've improvised on this nice area that the hospital provided. The Army built these benches. We've used the same benches now for 3 or 4 years because we come back. They throw these benches in the room and they sleep on this wooden bench the night before their surgery. They have their surgery and they go to another area of the hospital. But this is our routine of patients willing to travel 2 days or 3 days to see us. They sleep on a bench overnight. They get their surgery. They sleep on a bed that has a mattress, hopefully, the next day. And 2 days later, they're home. So they're quite grateful.
Yeah.
And this next picture here is
I don't know if we have a next one.
this is the last one. Yeah. But
That was the last one.
there's a lot in this picture I see of the stoic face of that woman that occasion will break into a smile of thanks.
It's come on.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brad.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay.
Brad
Pleasure.
Wagner. Thank you.